Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. My guest today is yet another awesome woman in the trades. Her name is Darci Spiteri. Darci grew up in the typical way, right? She wanted to do graphic design because it was something she thought she was passionate about. She never really was introduced to the trades in high school, so she pursued graphic design for about one semester in college. She quickly realized, though, that labeling her passion as work wasn't something that she was prepared to do for the rest of her life. After bouncing from job to job, Darci made the decision to get into trades as an electrician. Since then, she's felt like she's been on a path to success, so much that one of her dreams has actually become to inspire others to feel that way as well. Listen in to hear how the skilled trades taught Darci how to rack up small victories every single day in her pursuit of a rewarding, successful career in the trades. As always, this show's not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on word of mouth from our listeners to grow the show. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to rate it, review it, and share it with your friends. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of the Blue is the New White podcast with Darci Spiteri. Darci, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast. Good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since you agreed to come on the show. So very excited to talk to you. Why don't we start out by you telling our listeners who you are, where you come from, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I am Darci, and I am currently a first-year electrical apprentice. I am 37. I feel like that's kind of part of my story as being a second career. I started out in the marketing world. I was doing a lot of studio management. And as of recently, I have gone into electrical and decided to take up the trade. I started out of high school. I ended up going down, I wanted to be a graphic designer. And I ended up, I think in high school, my generation was a lot of like tech programs were being pushed in high school, like computers, design. So I ended up taking do you have grade 13? Like in high school, you just do
No.
Up to grade 12?
Just 12, yeah.
Yeah. So I was part of the year, like we've cut that as of recently. But I was one of the groups that did grade 13. So I ended up doing a co-op year at the end. But I ended up getting into a program called Digital Media Technical Production. And it was a program that actually ended up starting in August. So I went early. And I did one semester there, which I realized once I was in the program, it wasn't really what I was looking for. I wanted to do more of a graphic design program. And this was more how the computer worked and just more technical than I had expected. So I ended up deciding to just do the one semester and taking a year off. So I think I ended up working for an insurance company and just not as a creative person. It was very hard and sitting at a desk all day. I was part of the claims. So I was taking all the claims when people were getting into their car accidents. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then during that time, my dad was also going through a little bit of a transition in his career. He was always doing sales and marketing. So he was like, I've had it with the corporate world, and he wanted to go out on his own and start his own company. And he ended up deciding to do a franchise for a printing company. And as someone who had wanted to do graphic design, I was like, perfect. It was me, my mom, and my dad that had started it. And then from there, I kind of realized that graphic design was not what I wanted to do. Like I'm a creative person and I like to do that kind of stuff for myself, but to have to do it for other people, I was I was not into that. And I think that's one of the things with high school. Like I did a co-op, but I only did one. Like I worked at a photography studio, and I think it's so important to see different jobs. Like it's not what's kind of laid out for you. You don't understand what the whole job entails. So I ended up like working at the print shop, and from there we did work with so many different types of companies that I had no idea existed. And that's how I kind of ended up in studios. I did like project management, like traffic of design jobs. So I wanted to live in Toronto, work in Toronto. So that's like our big city. And it was just super expensive to be living downtown and working downtown. And that's when I kind of made the decision. I have an 8-year-old son right now, and he was younger then. And I was like, I can't work downtown. And I ended up moving back to my parents' place. And kind of that's where my journey of trying to figure out like a job that I could support myself and my son. So I was able to actually do a second career grant. So the government has a program, but it's weird how they have it's a very specific requirement that you have to be able to qualify. So you have to have been laid off from a job and then taken a contract position. They say to make ends meet. And I never thought I would ever be in that situation. And it was so specific, and it ended up happening. I was at an animation company, and they basically went into receivership. So everyone at the company was laid off. And then I took a mat leave position at a shredding company. So it was just an admin position. And then I was like, okay, I finally qualify. So this is where I had the time to actually think about what I wanted to do and make that decision. And I looked at some random jobs. Like I was like, well, I really like project management, so maybe I'll try that. I think I was looking at a stenographer at some point, like one of the court writers. Uh-huh. And then I almost said it, like I always say this, like I said it like as a joke to just do like, oh, well, I'll just be an electrician, but like joke, like in a way that I'm like, well, maybe like I couldn't do that. And then a light bulb went off, and I was like, why not? Like, I need to look into this more. And I love working with my hands, and I'm a very creative person, and it just kind of sparked from there. And just I saw so many women in trades, and I just got so inspired from that and wanting to have a story like that, I think. And I was able to do a pre-apprentice it's like a smaller school in Ontario where they had, I originally was going to go in for carpentry, and there was the director there was like, have you thought about electrical? And then I kind of just started looking into it, and seeing all the women again, I decided that I was interested. So the pre-apprentice was great. I had spoken with a couple of electricians that I knew and asked them if they recommended that I do a pre-apprentice, and I had told them that I was getting a grant to do it. And they're like, you honestly don't need it. Like, you'll go to school through your apprenticeship. But they're like, if you're getting it paid for, I think my thing was, I didn't want to walk onto a job site and just have zero idea. I wanted to at least have some kind of background. And I was like, I hadn't been in school for 10 years, and I never took any math or science. So it was like a huge shock to me. Like I went in with the mindset of like, I'm going to be the best in my class. I'm going to do so good. I'm going to get the job, like right from taking this pre-apprentice. And it was just like a smack in the face. I was like, oh my gosh, like understanding the whole electrical theory and all the math. I had gotten to a point where I remember sitting outside my class and calling my best friend. I'm like, I can't do this. It's so hard. And she's like, Darci, like, put on your big girl pants and you can do this. And it was like that moment. I was like, you know what? Like, my grades maybe don't matter as much, but I have the drive and the want to do it. And I think that's really pushed me through. Like I was able to, once my pre-apprentice stopped, or went finished, I worked for just an electrician who had started his business and was helping him out. And then I'm with the IBW right now. They had an intake, and I went in for the intake. They did a aptitude test, an interview, and they had told me, like, they're like, your scores aren't the best, but like, are you willing to take tutor, like get a tutor, or like do whatever to keep your grades up? And I'm like, yes. Like, I think I wanted it so bad, and I think they saw it, and they saw that I was a little bit more mature, and I think they recognized that, and we're like, okay. So I've been on this job site now I started January last year, so I've
Okay,
been
almost
at it
a year.
almost a year. Yeah. And every day is just like, I have these moments where I'll be with my journeyman, and they're all having this conversation that I don't understand, but I can't wait to understand. And it was almost like an outer body experience. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I'm here. And like,
I'm doing it. I'm really doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I feel kind of sometimes a little bit like fangirlish. Like, I'm always that one who's just like, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. But
that's awesome.
It is. Yeah. So
that's awesome. And that's a really great story.
Yeah. It's all like, I always kind of just fell into positions like through like working with my parents and then learning about that stuff. And like, I had gone from an account coordinator to a studio manager, and I just never really had time to really think about what I wanted to do. I think I just kept moving along and
just kind of going through the motions and
exactly.
You know,
yeah. And
taking where life took you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I tend to live life that way, but at the same time, I think having an 8-year-old and wanting something a bit more for him and me. So yeah, I'm hoping this brings that.
Well, it sounds like you're well on your way, number one.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. And I really love your story. I want to get into it a little bit. I already took like a half a page of notes. So I'm curious. One thing I didn't really get clear, did you actually attend like a traditional college or university, or was just your grade 13 kind of co-op thing that you had?
I did a college program, which was the digital media course, but it was one semester, and then I decided to try and figure out what I really wanted to do.
Well, that's more than me. I've only got a half a semester under my belt, so good job. Okay, well that's interesting. So let's start kind of back in your high school days. You know, you said you were interested in graphic design, and you took this digital media production class and stuff like that. I'm curious, you know, with your dad in sales and marketing and stuff like that, was there a push for you to go to college, or were the trades ever brought up to you as an option?
The trades never were, and I don't even remember really learning about them in high school. Like, we had an auto class. I remember, I know in, I think grades 7 and 8, we had shop class, but I don't ever really remember them giving that as an option. Like, I come from a family that, like, two of my cousins are electricians, and that's about it for trades.
Okay.
Like, but to go to school, I think just to go and try a college program was kind of what was being pushed, but never trades as an option.
Okay. Well, and that's the narrative we often hear, right? Just go to college and try, you know, give it a go, give it a shot. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, some college excluded, because, you know, a lot of times college itself isn't that terribly expensive, but you're talking university, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, here in the States, it's a state college or a state university, whatever, can get pretty pricey. So, you know, to tell somebody, just go ahead and try, you know,
to me,
it's always been terrible advice.
Yeah, because like I don't understand how an 18-year-old is at the point where they know what they want to do with their life. They have no idea what is out there and what even exists. And there was one girl that was teaching a co-op that I had seen where she was actually getting people in the real world with like different jobs that you wouldn't know exist, and just like teaching the kids in her co-op. And I'm like, that's more what you need. It's almost like you need to go through a whole bunch of different co-ops as opposed to one that you're choosing. Like I was at a photography studio, and like I could have gotten so much more out of that course than what I actually did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that, because you're spot on. At 18 years old, people just, I mean, some people know what they want to do, right? Some people know what they want to do and they have since they were 5 years old, but that's not the majority. The majority of kids between, 16 and 18 years old, it's like, they either A, don't know what they want to do, or B, they think that they should just be able to pick what they want to do for the rest of their life off of a list.
Yeah.
That they're given. And that's tough when you're talking about kids.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of getting them hands-on experience, and really, kind of exposing them to a lot more situations. And it's still not going to be enough, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at least it kind of gives them a taste of reality.
Yeah. And I think now, even with like the whole social media thing, like I've found so many people on like just other women in trades, other people, like anyone in trades. And there's such a family feeling, and just seeing everyone post what they're doing at work and learning that way, I think is like, I never had that. I never, like the internet, like I remember when the internet came out, that's like,
Yeah.
the smell of certain paper reminds me of the internet. That's how, like, it's so
That's
weird.
Awesome. Yeah. And that god awful sound, right?
The dial up. Yeah.
The dial up.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I was like,
Yeah.
What's it doing?
Yeah. No one could call the house because you were on the internet.
Yeah. The line was busy.
The struggle was real.
Yeah. Took a web page like 14 minutes to load, and you're like, that was so fast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, but you're right. The exposure that we've gained in this industry because of social media has been fantastic. And often, admittedly, I've been very critical of social media, just because.
Yeah.
And look, and nothing, not to take anything away from my listeners, because most of them find me via social media. I think that it can be a very, very powerful tool. And the issues that I have with social media stem further and deeper, and I'm not going to get into that. That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
but you're right. We have an opportunity now, because we live in a day and age where you can pick up your phone, you can scroll through Instagram, you can search for, electrician or welder or construction worker or HVAC technician, whatever you want, or even just skilled trades. And you've got a list of just really oftentimes very interesting, people and postings and situations.
Yeah.
If I would have seen something like that, when I was in high school, I definitely would have taken a good look at the skilled trades before I made the decision not to get into them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a very fair point. So, so you took one semester of the digital media course.
Yeah.
And then that was enough, and you were like, this isn't what I want to do. And then that's when you took the year off.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I was at the insurance company.
Yes, the insurance company. And through this, you were just kind of just going wherever life took you.
Exactly.
And
okay.
And did you give any thought at this point to, like, were you trying to think to yourself, what is it that I want to do? Or was it just, were you not really interested in it?
I think it was more just like, I think I was so focused on finding a career that I loved and like what I thought I would love. And it just kind of, I think I like had tunnel vision, and I was like, I want to live this Toronto life. I want to live and work downtown, and I want to be at a marketing company. And like, I think it's almost like part of me is like, you watch all those like rom-com movies and everyone works at a magazine or like, and that's what I saw as my life. But then like you get into it and I was like, I'm sitting at a desk all day. Like I loved the culture of it. Like I worked with so many amazing people and a lot of very strong female managers I've had, and that like I always wanted to be that person. And I think I've felt more like that now in getting into a trade and just being so proud of myself. Like this is one thing that I like, it took me a while to get to my apprenticeship. Like I was at my pre-apprentice in 2018. So it took me 2 years to get to this point, and I think I fought so hard for it. And now that I'm in it, I just feel proud of myself, and it's just it feels like a fit. Like it doesn't feel pushed or like it seems right. And I had to take a huge step back, and it's hard. Like I was in a career that I could support myself, but now it was kind of, I was at the peak. I wasn't going anywhere higher. And I think now I'm like, I've taken this step back. I've moved back in with my parents. Like I have the support there, and it's hard some days, but I know that it's in 4 years, 5 years, it's going to be worth it. So,
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. You know, when you're young, you think you know what you want to do sometimes, and
yeah.
you don't. It's like, you know, I think even in my book, I say, you know, a lot of times what happens is you do what you think you're passionate about, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what brings you joy. But then as soon as you start doing it for a job, you know,
Yeah.
it's a completely different story, because it has a whole different feel to it. So you need to find something with that balance of, you know, what you can see yourself doing every day and what you
Mhm.
can see yourself not being miserable doing, you know,
Yeah.
and which is honestly why a lot of people do kind of find the trades, because
Hmm.
you know, a lot of this hands-on work. I mean,
Yeah.
the gratification that you feel after a job well done, you know,
Exactly.
is something you can't necessarily feel every day in all these jobs, you know, and so I think that that's definitely, I think there's a lot to be said about that. And it's interesting kind of listening to your story and the paths that you went down and trying to
Hmm.
kind of relate it back to what we were talking about. So, so you did that. You took a year off. Then you worked with your dad in the
Hmm.
in the franchise that he bought. Is
Yeah.
that right?
It was a like a large format printing company. So they did like vehicle wraps, banners. So pretty much like any company could use them. So it's like I had more exposure to different companies at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you said that you saw women in the trades,
Hmm.
and that inspired you, you know,
Yep.
to kind of go down this route. Can you talk about some of those women that you saw? Was it anybody specific, or was it just, you know, kind of what we were talking about before, a collection of social media and
Yeah. Social media. That some of the colleges had articles, and then from there it's like a rabbit hole, right? Like you just kind of start searching these people. And I had reached out to one girl. I think they were on like we have the College of Trades. You have to be registered through there, so you can find anyone who's registered. And I was able to email her, and I was just like, I'm thinking about going into electrical. Do you have any advice? And I think one of the things too is everyone's so open to tell you their story and give you advice and kind of talk to you about it. And so I like when she emailed me back, she was like, yeah, like I love it. It's great. She did kind of get into like it's a tough industry for women, and I haven't experienced anything like what's I've heard some women say, but I think we're in a different time right now with that. Like it's more women are entering in. Um and I think just reading those stories, and I think there was one electrician who she was like, I was a single mom and I was able to support myself. And I think that just sat with me and was like, this is kind of my story as well. And I wanted a job where my son would look at me like, oh, this is my mom's an electrician. And I like the, like my brother said to me, he's like, you're always doing like random stuff. And like, while I was waiting for my apprenticeship to start, like I was dealing blackjack at a casino, which weirdly, you know what? It's so funny. We were doing our conduit bending, and there was a certain bend where you had to, your measurement was like 1.5 times your measurement. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's blackjack. So like, I'm like, it's like I'm like, now I can do that in my head. So I think every career that I've had has led me up to this point and like prepared me for it. So like I have my project management background. I'm organized. I have my blackjack. Like,
Talk about transferable skills.
exactly. I laughed so hard. I'm like, 1.5? I know all those in my head.
That is awesome. I
Yeah.
like that. And I think you're right. I mean, and as I'm looking at my notes here of your timeline, there's a lot of things that kind of point you in that direction. I mean, even you
Hmm.
said that you used to joke about how, oh, I'll just be an electrician.
Yeah.
I think it almost seems like, something in you was like, this is actually a viable option. And
Yeah.
finally it surfaced, right? And
Yeah.
and you went to pursue it.
Yeah. I think when I was 24 and I had bought a house, and I was like, I can't wait to install the dimmer switches. And I was like, that was the one thing that I was really excited about. And I think too, like as an electrician, now that I'm in it, I never knew the scope of it. Like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go like put switches in, put receptacles in, but there's so much more to it. And the job that I'm on right now, I'm lucky that I started in the beginning stage too. Like I'm able to see from start to finish. Like we're doing a school right now, and the what it goes into it before and like what you don't see. It's so crazy and
It's
amazing to
amazing.
see.
It really is
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm glad you brought that up because, that kind of ties into the perceptions that I talk about too.
Hmm.
I've had plumbers on the show and they
Yeah.
always talk about the kind of the same thing. Nobody in high school wants to be a plumber because all they see is, oh, they fix toilets all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe nobody wants to be an electrician because they don't want to, install light switches all day long. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the furthest thing, that's like the furthest thing down the list that you actually
Exactly.
do, right? I mean, from start to finish, you've got the plans, you've got, running all the wire and the conduit and everything.
Hmm.
And some of that stuff, I mean, you look at it and it looks like art, you know?
Exactly. It's like you can be creative in this role if you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the pictures, and that's a great thing to look up on social media is conduit running or electrical
Yeah.
boxes because
Yeah.
some of the images that come up, you're just like, how in the what, you know?
I know. Yeah. One of my journeymen, I was looking at it today actually. I was like, this is my goal right here. Like to be able to, and it's like clean lines, and then you can see when there's people that are not so good at it, but
Yeah,
it is, I think,
got to start
the cre-
somewhere.
exactly like my stuff, bro. I got to run all the conduit under the stage. They're like, this is going to be covered, Darcy. You can do this.
Oh man, that's good. So then, um, let's jump forward a little bit to
Hmm.
just this past year. This is when you really jumped in with both feet, right?
Yep.
And it's your first year apprenticeship. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious about like some of the challenges that you faced, when you first started. I know you
Pre-
had the training and the pre-apprenticeship and stuff like
yeah.
that. But, in this first year apprenticeship, what's been the most challenging part of it for you?
Um, I think wanting to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
So I had one day where my foreman was like, okay, it was like a 2-inch core that I had to get through. Like, so we're doing block work, and I'm like 5'2", and I always feel that I'm always like half an inch too short to do things on the ladder. And this drill weighs like 30 pounds on its own. I'm like trying to hold it up at an awkward angle. And I'm like, I just need you to start it for me. And then I can go from there. And then, like, I didn't want to not be able to do it. And I think that's always in the back of my head. And I just left that day and I'm like, oh, like I don't want to not be able to do it. And then I thought about it afterwards. I went home and I was like, you know what? Like, any company that I worked at before, I can't do everything that is going on in the company. Like, there are things that I may not be able to do. And there was another female electrician that was there, and she's like, you're just like, it's not that you didn't have the strength to do it. It was almost your height seemed like you were at a disadvantage. And
Well,
and I
leverage,
kind of
it's important. Yeah.
yeah, and like I was talking with my foreman after about it, that it like that I was frustrated, and he's like, yeah, like we're not going to be able to do everything. Like, I'm going to have probably like a super tall guy on my team, and I'm going to get him to do something like that. Like, everyone's going to have their specialty, and I'm just trying to find that. And I mean, there's things I feel like I need to be more physically fit because I don't want to struggle as much, but I think I also need to realize I'm not going to be able to do everything.
Well, and I want to touch on that for a second, because
Yeah.
I don't want to anyone out there, to get discouraged, because I want everyone to know too, even on my staff, I've got a guy that's I believe 5'2" or 5'3".
Yeah.
He's on the shorter end, and I mean, he takes some shit for it, but he's been taking shit for it his entire life. But
Yeah.
but my point in this is that he's now my service manager. And I mean,
Yeah.
he is one of the most knowledgeable, efficient, and productive technicians that I have ever met.
Yeah.
And his height was never a hindrance. I mean, I shouldn't say never a hindrance. I mean, it's an obstacle that he's got to get over, just like you do. But it never deterred him from doing the job. And he's actually excelled beyond almost all of his colleagues. And it's because it's all about what's up here. For those of you not watching, I'm pointing to my head. It's all about what's in your head, and how you can apply that. So even though there might be certain physical struggles, in the trades, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever, it won't deter you if you're determined to be the best.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and on that point too, I struggle with that too, wanting to be able to do everything right away.
Yeah.
I wish this was like the Matrix, where I could just plug myself in and learn something, and then I can do it.
Go.
But unfortunately, that's not the way it works. I've looked everywhere. But I think that's important, because I talk a lot about the trades teaching certain fundamentals and being able to develop personally, because of a career in the trades. And I think, the ability to be humble, humility, knowing that learning that patience. We live in such an immediate gratification society. Patience truly is a virtue. And that's oftentimes how you're going to learn to do something better than anyone else, is to take the time to actually do it. And in the trades, sometimes you're forced to do that. You can't just step in and be the best.
Exactly. Like, that's because we do 9,000 hours. So I appreciate that so much. And just, I think the pre-apprentice program that I was doing, I felt like everything was moving so fast. It was like we would do circuits, and it's like we'd start with an easy one, and then it would get harder and harder, faster, where now it's like I'm able to go into a classroom and do like a certain type of receptacle, and I'll do it for the whole school. And like, I have that time to learn. And I think also feeling like I need to be fast is another issue I have. I'm like, I'm too slow. Like, it's taking me 20 minutes to put this screw in. Like, but just knowing that I have the time to learn, and this is what the apprenticeship is for, like to start and learn as I go.
Yep. And I tell everybody on my staff too, before you can do something fast, you have to do it slow.
Exactly.
And that's just life. I mean, that is what it is. And I bet that I'm willing to bet that you take your knowledge that you've gained over the last few years, in this field, and you're excited to apply it to something at home. Is that true? Is that right?
Yep. Yep. Yes.
I get that too.
Yeah.
My wife, it wasn't too long ago, and she asked me to fix the toaster oven. Did you listen to the episode where I talked about that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. No,
Ooh.
she asked me to or she didn't ask me to fix the toaster oven. She said the toaster oven's broken. We need to get a new one. I said, the hell with that. This is what I do. Are you kidding? So I'm out there in the garage, got the toaster oven all ripped apart,
Yeah.
found a bad relay. I was all proud of myself. My daughter came
Nice.
out. She said, what are you doing? I said, electrocuting myself. And no, it was, but that's kind of what we do, right? I mean, the people that like to work with their hands, we're lifelong learners,
Yes.
and, and that's great. So I'm curious, you said your son's 8 years old. Is he taking an interest in what you're doing?
He is, and he's always like, well, you can be the electrician at my school when you're done. I'm like, that would be awesome. Yeah, he like a little, I think when I told him, he was like, okay, like he loves to do, like, I'm a huge crafter. Like, I love to craft. So I'm like, this is definitely going to up my craft game, being able to do things like that. But he goes to a whole other level. He's like, okay, so we're going to make some like animatronics. I'm like,
whoa,
like, let's start smaller here. But he thinks it's cool. And I think what I'm kind of doing and showing him is like the drive that I have to do this. And I just want him to see that. And I think as he gets a bit older, I think he still doesn't fully get it, but I think he gets it somewhat.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's awesome too, that he has the ability to see that drive in you, because I mean, just talking to you, it's clear, what kind of drive you have for what you do. And if you're stuck in a job or a career that you're not a fit for, you're not going to have that drive. And that rubs off on everyone around you. And, I talk a lot about leadership, and, the fact of the matter is, anybody and everybody has somebody else that looks up to them in one way, shape, or form, whether it's a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, brother, sister, mother, father, it doesn't matter. Somebody looks up to you, and all of your little micro messages, I guess you could call them, rub off on people, just the way that you hang your head when you come home from work, or how you talk about what you do for a living, all of that stuff people pick up on.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it's like the things, like, not the conversations that you're having, but like specifically about my job. But he'll see when I enjoy talking about work and telling him about my day and telling him about the guys at work and what we do. And he always wants to meet everyone that I work with, and he wants to be a part of it. I'm like, you can't come to the school. I'm sorry.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that's really great. So, so I'm curious then, throughout your last year of apprenticeship, has there been any, if you don't mind me asking, has there been any challenges specifically to being a woman in the trades? Not the fact that you're 5'2". I'll let that go.
Not that. No, and I feel very lucky that I am at the job site that I am at. When our union rep, he does all the dispatch, he's like, okay, so you're going to be at a school, and it's a newer company. They're a little bit more progressive. So I think it was super nerve-wracking my first day. Like, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to walk into. I had another woman come into the pre-apprentice and just kind of talked. There was one other female that was at the program that I did, and she kind of just told us, and she had some horror stories. And I mean, I'm the kind of person that can let things slide a bit. Like, I'm not too worried about it. If someone's going to not treat me nice, I'll obviously stick up for myself, but it's not something that I'm going to let deter me from something that I want. I'm a very like bubbly, upbeat person. So I think on my first day, I was like, I need to tone it down. I don't want these people to think that I'm not taking it seriously. And like, I did feel like people were like taking a second look. Like they're like, oh, like I was the only female on site. Yeah, I was the only one there. But I think it's like everyone's been super supportive, and they let me do things. Like people are not like being like, oh, let me carry your ladder. Like I try and like I want to do everything. And one of the like the superintendent on our site actually stood up for me one day. Like this gentleman wanted to help me with my ladder, and he's like, if she wants to be in construction, let her do it. And it's like I appreciate that. Like I'm here. I don't want anyone to help me just because I'm a female. And those are kind of the little the small wins that I had, like just being able to carry a ladder. It's like I started out, and I think I was telling someone, I'm like, the thing about being an apprentice is like every day you just feel awkward. Like everything you do is awkward. You have to get over that. And I kind of just make light of it by like I had to carry a 12-foot ladder, and then my foreman finally was like, carry it on your shoulder this way, and he showed me, and I was like, oh my God, you changed my life. And it's been like the easiest thing. And I don't even think about it anymore. But I remember having to do something outside, and there was these siding guys there that hadn't been there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so awkward. I can't carry this ladder. And I just was like, okay, guys, like here's the funny ladder show. And they just kind of laughed about it. And that kind of made me feel a little bit better about it. But
Yeah,
I think that's pretty much all I've really experienced. So I'm hoping like my job is kind of coming to an end right now, and it's going to be a new stress for the new job site that I have. But I think my where I am mentally with it, I think I'm okay. And I have the support of other women. Like Shannon's been amazing to have in my corner. And I think just finding your support systems where you can ask for help, or like how you would deal with a situation has been really good. But it is kind of something that's on my mind when I go to a new job site. So
sure. Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And I think, it makes me happy to hear that, you haven't gone through a lot of the same struggles that some of the other women I've talked to, have gone through. It to me, I see it as a sign of the times changing,
exactly.
which is good. That's what we're doing here, right? I say all the time, if we want to talk about closing the skilled trades gap, we can't leave 50% of the population on the table. It just, especially when they're perfectly capable of doing the same job. I mean, and that's the part that I like to get across. And it's funny when I hear you talking about the holding the ladder and stuff like that, because it is those little victories, right? I remember the first time somebody showed me how to hold a door, just an empty door or a sheet of plywood. And I was like, oh my God, I was walking around like this for a long time, trying, and so it's these little things, and that's how we learn and grow. And really it's just when you figure something, even that small, when you figure something that small out, it's such a game changer, right? Because
it is,
you immediately gain confidence, which is another big thing that I talk about in the trades. A lot of times with women in the trades and even with men in the trades too, it's a huge confidence builder as long as you have the humility, that goes along with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good thing. Like you don't, like some people can take things way too much to heart. And I think that's where I have, succeeded more. Like I have the humility. Like I'm okay if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to ask how to do it and get someone to teach me. And it is like the ladder was such a small thing, but literally like it changed how I was at work. And like using, like the first day I had to use a bandsaw, and I'd never used a bandsaw before. And it was, I have moments where I'm doing my work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember when I first started and just where I was at and not being able to do things and having the guys on site willing to teach and wanting to teach.
Yeah, that's important. And,
Yeah.
to your point too, it's a combination, I think, of humility and being able to have thick skin. Because I don't
Hmm.
care who you are, I mean, you're going to probably catch some shit on job sites,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Apprentices, male or female, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They all do. And so that's one of the things that I write in my book, but that really, that old phrase, oh, it builds character. It really does.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
in my opinion, it does. And I mean, of course, there's a line, right?
Yeah.
You can't cross a certain line, but a good amount of razzing, and I mean, it really it prepares you for the type of work that you do, because it's often difficult work, and
Hmm.
you do have to, kind of have a bit of a shell, so if you do screw something up, because it's gonna happen, it's
Exactly.
inevitable. You're gonna screw
Yeah.
up somewhere, you're gonna have to swallow your
Fess up.
pride, take
Yeah.
it, fess up, and say, hey, look, this was my fault. I fucked up, and I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah. And
And
that was
so,
one thing my foreman had told me. He's like, I'd rather you come to me and explain to me your thought process and on how it happened than to hide it and me find it and then you be like, oh yeah, I didn't think that was right. Like, own up to it. Everyone makes mistakes. Like, I had, like, my first one would have been, I ended up cutting the wires before they were all labeled. They were all going to the panel. I'm like, oh. My journeyman's like, okay, you can stop joking now. Like, you can tell me the truth. I'm like, no, I cut them and I didn't label them. And I was just like, I couldn't stop smiling because I felt so bad, but he thought I was joking the whole time. I'm like, no, I really cut them. And then it was a learning, right? Like, if I hadn't have done that, I never would have understood the reason why. And like, he taught me, he's like, okay, so now we're going to figure out, we can use our meter and figure out which wire is what. And he took me through that. And he's like, are you going to cut them again? I'm like, never again. But I'm like, guys, like, you've all done it. Right. And everyone's had their moments like that. But
of
I think
course,
it's so important for learning. And if someone's going to tell me not to do something, I'm not going to fully get it until I actually make the mistake.
yeah. Mistakes are the best teachers, and
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. I tell everybody here, fail fast and fail often, because
Yeah.
that's just the best way to succeed is to
Hmm.
fail. And my dad told me a long time ago. He said failure isn't true. It's not a thing. You don't fail until you give up. Once you give up, you
Hmm.
fail. But as long as you take it as a learning experience, move forward and make sure you're not
Yeah.
to make the same mistake twice,
Yeah.
then you didn't fail.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important lesson, especially in the trades. I can't count how many times I screwed something up, or how many times I
Yeah.
burned my eyebrows off. We won't talk about that, um, but you know what? It happens. And again, I'm not
Yeah.
deterring anybody from going to the trades. I didn't need my eyebrows anyway. It was fine. I actually look better without eyebrows. Um,
Yeah.
but it's and you know what? It keeps it interesting and it makes it fun, and that's what makes the accomplishments worth accomplishing.
Yeah.
Being able to look back, like they say in Gone in 60 Seconds. Without disappointment, you can't appreciate victory.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
So.
like that.
Um, so what's next for Darci? What are your grand plans with this career? You got almost a year under your belt
Yep.
as an apprentice. Where do you want to be?
I think what I really want, aside from the apprenticeship, I think I also want to be an inspiration. I want to be able to talk to not only females, but like anyone who is looking to learn more about the trades. Like, I felt so inspired by the other women that I wanted to be that for the trade as well. So I think completing my apprenticeship, I'm hoping it takes me 5 years. It all depends on what work we have kind of in the union. So I'm hoping we stay busy. But I think just educating people on the trade and being able to inspire someone. When I met Shannon, we were at our union hall, and it was for an announcement that the government was putting more money into trades. And there was a politician woman there and she's like, you guys are like paving the way for future females. And I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, you just gave me goosebumps. Like, it's weird to think that there aren't many women in the trade. And we are like, I think there's 20 in our union of like thousands. And I don't think I really understood how, I don't want to say lucky, but like how proud I should be that I've made it this far. And just, we were with two other women that were with the union, and I'm like, like the stuff that they kind of would have went through in order to get us to where we are. And it's just, I think I want it to be like more, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like more women in the field and to feel the accomplishments that I feel. So
yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, that's a great thing to aspire to, and I think just by doing what you're doing, you know,
mm-hmm.
it's an inspiration to probably a lot more people than you think. You know, just because you're right. I mean, there aren't a lot of women in the trades, you know, which is something that we're trying to change, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just, you know, that first group of people to do something different. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I still consider every woman that's in the trades right now the first group. You know, I know some came before others and whatnot, but the percentage is still so small that
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're part of a network of women who are you know, paving the way, really.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that in itself is inspiring. And you know, so all you have to do is continue to tell your story, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
inspired.
Good. Yes. Actually, I had gotten a message from, like, I have an Instagram, and one girl had written like, you're so inspiring. And it was like, it was so nice to hear that, and just happy that people are reaching out. And I've always just kind of said, like, any questions you have, let me know. And just being able to educate people more, like,
Yeah.
so.
We're cut from the same cloth. I love hearing those words too. You
Yeah.
know, when
Yeah.
somebody says, "Oh man, you're so inspiring," I'm just like, "Oh, you want to be friends?" You know,
Did we just become best friends?
did we just
Yep.
become best friends? Yeah. No, that's really great. So I've got one more question for you
Yeah.
before we jump off. It's something I ask everybody, and you kind
Yep.
of answered it a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to go into a
Yep.
little bit more detail. So
Okay.
I talk about success, and I talk about how the skilled trades can allow us to live our definition of success, no matter what that is, you know, a lot of times. And so I'm curious with you what your definition of success is. You know, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, I think, when you said that you wanted to be an inspiration to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what is success at the end of the day? You know, not to be morbid, but you're on your deathbed. What would make you look back and say, my entire life was a success, and this is why?
I think, I don't know. I think just the fact that I'm on this path and I'm sticking to it, and feeling those little successes, the little victories. I think each day I learn something new, and I'm super happy where I'm at work. Just like, I think those outer body experiences of being happy where I am, and I'm so much happier. Like, mental health is so important. And I think I'm able to see that I'm learning these things, and that's so good for my brain. And I think I have the time where I don't think about work when I'm at home. Like, I can have a line there. Like, I have my son at home, and I think just being able to do that is important. But I think it's definitely those little wins for each day that I think is my success. And I've had jobs where I'm not feeling those little wins. And I think just being able to accomplish this is, I'm like, I'm already a success. I already feel successful. I'm happy.
That's great. That's such a good answer. You know, the small victories every day, is, I think that's such a great measure
Mm-hmm.
to your success, because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you can, set small goals and you can actually achieve that every day. I'm very much the same way.
Yeah.
I can't lay my head on the pillow at night if I don't feel like I accomplished something that day.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
little victories, if I can feel that the rest of my life every day,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that's success.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a really awesome answer. So before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you wanted to share that you were hoping that we talked about?
No, I think we talked about everything.
We
I think
covered a
just
lot.
we did. Yeah. Like sharing kind of my random journey of work and how I got here. And I think it's just like the learning that happens every day. Like I even started, like I do skipping. Like I'm like one day a week I'm doing this skipping class, and it's like the most brain and body weird thing. Like just learning how to skip is
What's a
like
skipping
a little.
class? What?
So she does like competitive skipping. So like jump rope.
Oh, got it. Okay. I'm with you. I get it.
You're like, I'm following. Now I'm on. But it's like, it's something that I've never done. And again, it's like, as soon as I learn how to do those moves, I'm like, yes, it's a little win. And I come home and I'm like, yes.
That's so
But,
awesome.
yeah.
That's really great. All right. So why don't you tell people where they can find you?
So I can be found on LinkedIn and on Instagram. I am under Sparks to Sparkles. Should I spell it? Like how it is, or
I'll
you'll
find
link it?
Yeah, I'll find it and
Okay.
I'll link
Yeah.
it. Sparks to Sparkles.
Yeah.
All right. Are you following me on Instagram?
I think I am.
Okay, good. Then
think
that'll
I
make
am.
you easier to find.
Yeah.
But no problem. I'll get that out so
Yeah.
everybody knows where they can get a hold of you. And Darci, I just thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story of awesomeness with my listeners. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people out there are going to find this very, very valuable and inspirational.
I hope so. Thank you for having me.
All right, Darci, take care.